Bill, welcome to my YouTube channel. There are two things which are guaranteed to spoil your progress when you're trying to learn a new piece. The first one is trying to rush through the first stages of practicing. That is a biggie. And then the second thing is lack of consistency. And really I'm going to talk mostly about the first one. And that is rushing through those early stages of music practice. Because when we first get a new piece of music, you open the page and it's just like, oh my days, just loads and loads of meaningless blobs. And you just, however am I going to get this under my fingers? And it's getting from the stage of just blobs to music blossoming out. And it's really, really important to absolutely take your time on those first stages, because we've got to kind of sort out the maths of it first. And in a previous vlog, I've talked about whether music is art or science, because in bygone times, music was considered as a science. And so I'll put a link to that vlog if you want to just do a little bit more thinking on this topic, because it's really, really interesting. And if we give that credence to the scientific, mathematical aspect of music, we're not then surprised to have to spend a good amount of time doing significant, laborious practice almost. And so it's really important to just go so slowly, to manage the notes, to make sure we're playing the correct notes, to make sure we master the correct fingering, to make sure our timing is accurate. And all of this is a very slow mechanical process. And we do that to begin with. But then I think what happens is, as we start to get a feel for where the music's going, we then kind of get the feel for it and then rush ahead into the next stage and start trying to make it sound pretty. And it's really, really important to bear in mind that practice and performance are two very, very different things. And when you're doing your music practice, you need to bear in mind that it's going to sound terrible. And that's the point, because you're dissecting bits out and stopping and starting and figuring out what's going on. And it shouldn't sound nice. That's the bit where we're just sorting it out. It's a very private thing. And if somebody else is listening, well, that's their fault. You know, you're not playing this for their pleasure. If you've got headphones, even better. However, practice is that scientific working out of mathematical formulas of this blob and then this blob and then this blob. And this is the bit where you've really got to rein in your enthusiasm to get carried away with the music and to really, really labour over that to build up what is called muscle memory or finger memory. And I do remember years and years ago in fact, a TV programme where they wired up a musician's brain and fingers and sort of measured the synaptic pulse, of the way that the timing of the nerves from the brain to the finger ends. I think it was a pianist who was playing one of these really, really fast Bach fugues. So his fingers were just literally flying over the piano. That's what fugue means, flight. And my science here is terrible, so do excuse me, but the principle remains. Let's say, for example, it takes a nanosecond, whatever that is, to get the pulse from your brain to your fingers to tell you to play that key. However, after practice, science found that actually a musician's fingers, and no doubt it's the same in other fields as well, a musician's fingers could go faster than the synaptic pulse would actually allow. They can't explain it, and so it's just called muscle memory or finger memory, where you just kind of do what you do without even thinking about it. And that's where the hours of practice come in, because you can't hope for that muscle memory until you've inputted the information in. And now this is important, where we remember that it isn't just repetition. Mindless repetition is no good at all. If things aren't working, don't just keep repeating it. You've got to be mindful and be aware what you're doing, and stop and think and digest and work out and problem solve. But then definitely we have to then keep repeating that for the finger memory to sort of embed. And it's only then, and I think it's always a shock how much time that takes. It's usually much longer than you imagine. And it's only then that we move on to the next stage. And I know that I'm guilty of I think we all just want to rush on to the next stage. And that's the bit where now the art and the music comes into play, pardon the pun. And that's where we can start thinking about musical elements of dynamics, articulation, our phrasing, our slurring, our expression, which bit's the melody, which bit is not the melody and perhaps not quite so important. What kind of a tone are we after? Do we want a sharp attack, or do we want a lyrical sostenuto line? And these are the things where the music starts to blossom out. But we can't do that safely until the first stage has begun. And so I really would just encourage you to be patient and just spend the time getting the blobs sorted. Then you have the foundation in which to allow the music to blossom afterwards. If you don't, what happens is we just end up making mistakes, and we end up repeating those mistakes and practicing them in. So it's false economy, really. The second part of this, which is kind of linked, and I did touch on this last week, is lack of consistency, because you could do all of that practice, and I know I've been guilty of this. You have a great surge and you really make great progress, and you've made good study and you've really sorted it out, and then you don't do any for a few weeks. And then you come back to it and kind of it's all got rusty and you've forgotten, and you've got to remember it and you've got to take it back. And this is where, you've perhaps built up the speed, and then you get back to it and you think, I can't play it that fast, so you've got to go right back to slow again. And so if you can just keep it trickling away, you won't then have to relearn it and redo it again. And I just think it's worth just bearing in mind, it's the obvious solution really, isn't it? It's the most obvious things that are usually the easiest answer to our problems. And it really is, don't rush, but just give yourself time and patience to get the foundation sorted. And then once you've got it sorted, just keep it trickling along under your fingers so that you don't forget all the hard work that you've done. I do hope that's helpful to you. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye.